Tell me about yourself.
Well, my name is Frank Ferry. I was born in Edinburgh but brought up in Leith, Ballantyne Road, which is opposite the old State Cinema. You know where the old State Cinema is? The old Leith Hospital in Taylor Gardens. I was brought up in Ballantyne Road. I was born in 1935, so that makes me how old?
Don't have a clue.
76. I'm not quite as old as the dinosaurs. I'm getting
Okay.
there.
Tell me about your earliest memory and your family.
My earliest memories, well, I remember attending St Mary's Sea School, which used to be in Henderson Street. Prior to it being Henderson Street, the school used to be sited within the grounds of St Mary's Church, and the building is still there before we were here. And I remember the Blitz of April 7th, 1941, and a big bomb fell on the town hall in Largo Place, just up Ferry Road, and it blew all the windows out of my house, and I was sitting next to the fire reading my comic, and I literally blown out my chair and into the lobby, and all the roof and ceiling was coming down, the china plates smashed all over the place. And we rushed all downstairs to go to the shelters, and it was pitch black because you were not allowed to have any lights on outside the house in case you warned the German pilots where you were. So you had to make your way down the stairs and across a yard, a big yard, into a shelter which was under the ground, and wooden bunk beds. And we sat there all night, shivering in the cold, and the aircraft above chasing the German aircraft and bullets flying. And in the morning, it was about 9 o'clock in the morning before we got to the shelters again, a big siren used to go off to let you know it was all clear and safe to come home. And we came home, we had to clear up all this mess. We had no windows for months and months and months. And they put yellow canvas up in front of the windows to keep the wind and the rain out. That's one of the many traumatic memories I remember. There's many more.
What was St Mary's like when you were a little boy?
Well, St Mary's, there was no new technology like we remember nowadays. For the first year, I would say at least, you didn't get pens or pencils. There was no such thing as a biro pen hadn't been invented yet. They had a slate, which is about that size. You know the kind of slates that are on a roof? Well, it had a slate with a little wooden board around it. And the pencil that you got, it was made of the same material. And that's what you done your writing on. And sometimes you had a wee tin with a damp sponge in it to clean it. If not, you used your elbows. You went home after a while, you hose your elbows. Your mum was not amused with that sort of thing. You used to have 2 or 3 nuns that tutored the pupils in these days. And not like the nuns you see nowadays, or like the ones you see in old pictures with big black hooded cape and the white around their face and the rosary beads. And they should teach you the 3 R's and teach about the faith. I remember every Wednesday morning before school started, you're marched down from St Mary's School down to St Mary's Sea for a mass service, and you came back and you started your class lessons. I remember getting free milk, you got a third of a pint bottle of milk every day. And I remember in these days, why I don't know, but if it rained at a certain time after playtime, say at 10:30, you got half day. And if it was a wee bit heavy, so we used to look at the class window saying, oh, it's raining, hope it's heavy enough, so we got a half day. And that's about all I can really remember. Playtime was just like you play nowadays in the school. There was not a lot of food in these days because during the war there was rationing. You couldn't get a lot of food stuff. but you got subsidised or assisted meals at school, usually with soup, mince and potatoes, and a big chunk of cheese, and a big heel of bread, a big chunk of bread. It was very good, wholesome stuff.
Did you pick to work in the Navy?
My father was in the Merchant Navy at the time, and he was on the big passenger liners. You've all heard of the old Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth, the big passenger ships. My father was working on the Queen Mary in Mauritania, and used to run between Southampton and New York. Now, when I was a child, you saw these movies, and you saw America and New York, and compared to what we had back here, it was very, very glamorous, and the kids all had wonderful toys that we didn't have. They had the sweets, and the food, candy. And my father used to tell them about the film stars he met on these big passenger ships. And he told me about the tropical places he'd been all over the world, lagoons and warm climates. So I thought, well, that sounds jolly good to me. So I went to Leith Nautical College, and they had a training ship in the docks where Ocean Terminal is now, called the Dolphin. And we went to the Dolphin, and you were taught knowledge about the sea, seamanship. You were given normal educational things like arithmetic and English, and points to the compass. One thing they had to do was to be able to swim. Now, I was 16 and I couldn't even swim at that age. And no matter how good you were academically, if you couldn't swim, you were not allowed to qualify. So you should take you along to Victoria Baths in Junction Street, and we'd see all the swimmers who could swim stand at this side, and all the swimmers who can't swim at this side. And we'd see right non-swimmers going to bend over the swimming pool and adopt a diving position and bend forward. And you'd done that. And the head tutor school, when you kicked you in, you had to learn the hard way. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. Within 4 weeks, I could swim very, very well indeed. And when I was in the Merchant Navy, I saw many, many places. I was on a passenger liner that used to go through the Mediterranean, covering all the ports on the southern coast of the Mediterranean, through the Suez Canal, all the way down the east coast of Africa, to Durban, Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, Las Palmas. I spent a year on the American coast, all over New York, New Orleans, Montreal, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. I went to Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Texas. I spent many occasions in Portugal, France, and Holland, and had a wonderful time. It was a great life. But it all came to a sudden end because I stayed ashore too long. Now, in these days, if you were in the Merchant Navy, you were exempt from national service. Now, national service was a 2-year spell that everybody had to spend in the army. But if you stayed in the Merchant Navy, you were okay. You didn't get called up for the army. If you stayed along for any longer than 3 months, you got called up. So I mistimed my leave, and I got called up for the army. And I spent 2 years in the army, national service, learning to be a soldier.
How does Leith compare to other places you have been?
Well, you can't really compare it too much with all the other foreign places I've been. All I can say about Leith is Leith has a very, very strong identity. First of all, can I say that Leith has a history that goes back 800 years. That's officially recorded. And if you come from, there's no other place in the city, in Edinburgh, I can think of, that has this kind of identity that you belong to somewhere. I must add, you must ask your teacher if you can get hold of a marvellous book. It's called Russell's History of Leith. It starts the story about Leith round about 1200 years ago, up to about the 1920s. And it tells you a lot of the injustices that happened to Leith over the years, and to my mind still happens to this day. Do you know, in these days when merchant ships landed at Leith and they discharged their cargo, the merchants and traders in Leith were not allowed to purchase that cargo until it gone all the way up to the city of Edinburgh. Then the people of Edinburgh, city of Edinburgh, put a tax on it and sold it back to the people of Leith. Now, how unfair was that? Now this book tells you all about these kind of things, the kind of houses the people lived in, the kind of food they ate. There's only 2 copies of the book left in the Edinburgh libraries. I applied to get one. One's in a pretty bad condition, the other one's pretty much complete. And the reason I asked for it is I've got a copy in the house but I had some pages missing. If you get a hold of that book, it's really marvellous. But to get back to your question, how does Leith compare with Glasgow? Most places, Glasgow have got a great identity, but Leith was a borough of its own until 1927, totally separate from Edinburgh. It had its own corporation, it had its own transport system, it had tramcars long before Edinburgh had it. But in 1927, they agreed to amalgamate with the city of Edinburgh. But people in Leith never ever forgot this. They always say they are Leithers. In fact, I remember when I was graduating from Leith Nautical College, the captain of the training ship says to us, lads, you're going to be travelling all over the world and people are going to ask you, where do you come from? Now you'll probably react and say, oh, out of Edinburgh, because you'll think people don't know where Leith is. But she's never ever say I come from Edinburgh. Always say you come from Leith, no matter which part of the world you're in. And that's the difference between people who come from Leith and any other part of the city. There's a feeling of identity.
What do you think has changed in Leith in your opinion, and are they good or bad changes?
There are some good changes, there are some bad changes. The good changes are that people have a lot better housing than they had in my time. When I was growing up in Leith, you had large families, 5, 6, 7, 8 more people living in a house that had one living room. That's where you ate, you washed, and had a place, a wee bit off the living room where there was a bed. We had 1.5 bedrooms. There was no bath. Your toilet was outside. Some people shared their toilet with a neighbour next door. And if you wanted a bath, you had a big zinc bath, a big metal bath. And you pulled that out. It took lots of kettles of hot water to fill this up to have a bath. There was no hot water in the house. Well, there was to a certain extent, but you had coal fires these days. No electric fires or radiators, or gas fires or radiators. It was a coal fire. At the back of the coal fire was a cast iron metal tank that held about 1.5 gallons of water. And if you happened to have coal, which was very scarce and expensive, you could heat the hot water, but you didn't have hot water all the time. If you wanted a real good bath, you had to go along to Victoria swing baths in Junction Place and have a swim and a shower. Or if you just wanted a bath, they had cubicles, they were called the plunge, and you went along there and they gave a wee bar of soap. And you went along there and you got maybe 15 to 20 minutes for a few pence and had a bath. So from that point of view, things have grossly improved. As regards employment, there is no employment to talk of in Leith as there used to be. Because in Leith, up to the 1950s, you had very busy docks. There's hundreds of ships coming to the docks every day. And they needed hundreds, if not thousands, of dockers, men who loaded and unloaded ships to do this. Then you had other industries like cooperages, people who made barrels. You had the granary, who processed grain. You had people who made wine and whiskey. You had engineering works. There was thousands of people. And people all went home for lunch in these days. And at 12 o'clock, all the sirens in the works used to go off, you know, wee, wee, screeching noise, and let me know it's time to break for lunch. And it was like one big football match coming out, and you walk down the Kirgit, which was the big Kirgit, the Oldleithers walk down the shopping centres. And all the people coming out of their works to go home for their lunch. The same was at tea time at 5 o'clock. Thousands of people all converging on Junction Street, Leith Walk and the Ferry Road coming home from work. In these days the Kirgit stretches from the foot of Leith Walk all the way down to where these multi-storey flats are now. But there was houses on either side, there was dozens and dozens of shops on either side. The shopping in Leith was far different in these days. There was no supermarkets. Now you all know you can go to a supermarket nowadays and you can buy anything you want, whether it be sweets, vegetables, butcher meats, you name it, clothes, you can buy all in one shop. But in these days there was individual shops. You had shoe shops, furniture shops, clothes shops, butchers, bakers. You had a shop for every kind of product you wanted to buy. And you didn't have to go south of Pilrig to buy anything. You didn't have to go up to Prince Street to buy fancy. You could buy all that in Leith, because the whole length of Junction Street was lovely shops. And do you know that park in Junction Street near the Leith Hospital used to be? It's got a big tower with a big clock in it. Just in Junction Street, there's a building with a big clock in it, in Junction Street. That used to be the Leith Cooperative Society. And that was a department store, not quite within a class of genders. It was a classy store. You could buy furniture in there, shoes, underwear, suits, women could buy dresses. There was a chemist, you could buy anything there. And the complete length of Junction Street was shops on the other side. You go along Duke Street, was the same. You went down the Kirgit, all the same, and you got down above the Kirgit, where the police station is, Charlotte Street. There was Tollbooth Wine, there was big stores there, so you didn't have to travel anywhere, but you went out and bought your food daily in these days because nobody had refrigerators. So if you didn't buy your food daily and fresh, it shouldn't go off, especially in the summertime, like milk and butter and raw meat. So nobody had refrigerators, so you had to buy your food every day. There was a variety of shops. And entertainment, you had 5 cinemas in Leith at one time. You had the Alhambra on the corner of Springfield Street. You had the Capitol in Gordon Street, which is still there by Bingo Hall. You had the Palace, which is at the foot of Leith Walk on the corner of Duke Street. You had the Laurie Street, which is just behind where old Woolworths used to be. You had the State Cinema, you had Junction Bridge, so you had a choice of 5 cinemas. And people who like dancing could go dancing, and Leith was plenty dancing. And behind, or next to the State Cinema, was a big stadium where you could go watch wrestling every Monday or Tuesday night, people wrestling. So we had plenty of choice of entertainment.
Is there anything you would like to tell me about the people of Leith?
Well, the people, we've really covered that, because the people of Leith do have a separate identity, and even to this day, people help one another. If you're in need, you've always got neighbours. That sums up the people of Leith. It really covers the subject for you, Leith, and belonging to Leith.
Can you tell me one word that sums up Leith?
Well, I've actually got 4, so you can take your pick. It could mean belonging, identity, spirit, or the Leith motto, perseverance. Persevere. Okay, either one of these 4 sums up Leith. What sums up Leith is persevere, the motto of Leith.
Thank you.
While the chief put sunshine on Leith.
My name is Owen Davison and I'm a picture restorer and painter, so an artist as well. So I restore other people's pictures and I make my own.
Hi there, I'm Peter Cormack. I was a professional footballer and played for Scotland and Liverpool, Hibs, Bristol City. Anywhere else? I don't know.
My name's Tom Farmer, and I was born in Leith quite a long time ago. And I was brought up just right in the foot of Leith Walk. And if you actually go to the foot of Leith Walk and you look at a lamppost that's there, you'll see that there's a banner with my photograph in it. And it's almost just at the top of the road in which I was actually born, in a place called Unishree. And when I was a young
I am Gordon Munro, the Labour Councillor for the Leith Ward, and I've been a councillor for Leith from 2003 up to date.
Well, my name is Frank Ferry. I was born in Edinburgh but brought up in Leith, Ballantyne Road. I was born in 1935.
Well, my name's Rita Crombie and I'm very proud to say I'm a Leither. I was born in Leith, I worked in Leith and I live in Leith.
I have 6 brothers and sisters, so there was 7 children in my family, and so life was very difficult for us, and we were out working from when we were 8 years old. But even although we were poor and deprived, we never felt that we were, because everybody was poor and deprived in these days, because Leith knew a lot of poverty and deprivation. There was a lot of slums in Leith that had to be demolished, and these were in Admiralty Street and Cromwell Street and Cooper Street, and we were fortunate enough before they cleared the slums that my mum got us a house in Reswick, and we stayed in a 4 and a block there, and we thought we had arrived because it had a drying green and we had a lavatory all to ourselves. I couldn't say that my childhood was unhappy. I have a lovely relationship with my brothers and sisters, probably because we had to stick together and help each other through.
My family, I am a 3rd generation Leither, so my family has got very strong roots in Leith. Both my grannies were from Leith, my granddads were from Leith, my dad was from Leith, my mum was from Leith, and I was born in Leith. So I'm a proud Leither.
Well, my family's actually quite interesting because although I said earlier I was born in Leith and I'm a proud Leither, I'm only partly really a Leither because my mum was born in New Haven, my dad was born in the Shetland Islands, so a sort of half a Leither and half a Shetlander. But when I was a little girl, I was always told I had to be very, very proud that I was born in Leith, and I think that stayed with me for the rest of my
Childhood?
life.
Oh, well, I was born in Leith. I went to Bonington Road School, primary, and I went to David Kilpatrick Secondary.
I had a wonderful childhood. I was the youngest of 7 children. I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. Lots of things. We played a lot. We played in the street. We played in Leith Links here. We did a lot of swimming in Leith Victoria Baths during the school holidays and all these type of things. So it was a wonderful, wonderful childhood.
Oh yes, ever since I was 5 years old and I went to school. The school I went to is now called Leith Primary, but when I went it was Leith Academy Primary. And I remember the very first day going into school with about 90 other boys and girls and being taken into the gym hall and then taken away by this person who turned out to be my primary 1 teacher, and I loved her to bits. And I went home that very first day and my mum said that when I came home, that was the first thing I said, I'm going to be a teacher when I grow up. And that's what happened. I always wanted to be a teacher.
Thank you.
School and education was a passport out of poverty. So I liked school. And in the winter, it was warm and it was safe. Because even if you'd had money after the war, your ration was 1 bag of coal. So the fire wasn't lit until tea time. When you came in from school, your mother would light the fire, but in the school there would be heat. Also for families that were very poor, the children would have free dinners. So that would mean they would have something to eat. My mother did not ask for help very often, but once or twice we did have free dinners. But I liked school. I saw that school was a way out of poverty, and I loved when the library box was brought out on a Friday.
When I was a young lad, I went to school in St Mary's. It wasn't the same St Mary's that's here, this is St Mary's that was in Henderson Street. But I went there, I went to St Mary's at 5 years of age, and I had a great time in Leith. It was a wonderful, wonderful place to be born, and to be brought up and to play in and do all these things. And St Mary's was a great school. And one of the things I like is that I'm often asked to come to this St Mary's and meet up with the children.
I wasn't lucky enough to go to school in Leith. I went to school in Drumbrave where we'd moved to because the housing that we lived in was unsanitary.
I went to primary school during World War II. My twin sister and me, we were in the same class. I would say it was quite an austere period of time in most school children's lives at that time.
My earliest memories, well, I remember attending St Mary's South Sea School, which used to be in Henderson Street. Prior to it being Henderson Street, the school used to be sited within the grounds of St Mary's Church, and the building is still there before we were here.
My heart.
Oh, St Mary's, there was no new technology like we remember nowadays. For the first year, I would say at least, you didn't get pens or pencils. There was no such thing as a biro pen hadn't been invented yet. They had a slate. I remember every Wednesday morning, before school started, you were marched down from St Mary's School down to St Mary's Sea for a mass service. And you came back and you started your class school. There was not a lot of food in these days because during the war there was rationing. You couldn't get a lot of food stuff. But you got subsidised or assisted meals at school, usually with soup, minced potatoes, and a big chunk of cheese, and a big heel of bread, a big chunk of bread. It was very good, wholesome stuff.
School years were great, I think. Not like today. We didn't have computers and calculators and things like that in class, but we had to look up lots of information if we wanted to find out anything, so we would go to the library or look in the dictionary, just much like you do today.
It doesn't matter what age you are, as long as you've got the ambition, whether you're a footballer or a golfer or a swimmer or an athlete, if you want to get there, you can get there. But you've got to be professional yourself, you've got to watch what you eat and how you live and look after yourself, and you can get to the top. But it's never easy, but if you work hard, you can get there.
Broken, my heart.
And I remember the Blitz of April 7th, 1941, and a big bomb fell on the town hall in Largo Place, just up Ferry Road, and it blew all the windows out of my house, and I was sitting next to the fire reading my comic, and I literally blown out my chair and into the lobby, and all the roof and ceiling was coming down, china plates smashed all over the place. And we rushed all downstairs to go to the shelters, and it was pitch black because you were not allowed to have any lights on outside the house in case you warned the German pilots where you were. So you had to make your way down the stairs and across a yard, a big yard, into a shelter which was under the ground, and wooden bunk beds. And we sat there all night, shivering in the cold, and the aircraft above chasing the German aircraft and bullets flying. And in the morning, it was about 9 o'clock in the morning before we got to the shelters again, a big siren used to go off to let you know it was all clear and safe to come home. And we came home, we had to clear up all this mess. but no windows for months and months and months. And they put yellow canvas up in front of the windows to keep the wind and the rain out. That's one of the many traumatic memories I remember. There's many more.
The other thing I remember is the siren sounding and getting out of bed and being dressed to go to the shelter.
Was broken, sorrow.
I started off my football career was way back at Bonnet Road School, and I was only probably then about 9 or 10, and I always wanted to be a football player. And my ambition was to play for Scotland at that time. And I thought when I was 16, Hibs, Hibernian came, and because you couldn't sign professional forms then until you were 17, Hibs came and sneaked me for Hearts. So what I done then was, I said, look, you give me enough money to buy my mum and dad a house, and I'll sign for Hibs. And that's what happened. So that was a good deal. What do you think?
I always wanted to write. I've always lived in my own little world, and living in your own little world and dreams helps you get through the bad times. It really wasn't until I got into secondary school, and really I only started to write my stories down and into fictional families 4 years ago. Living in Leith did influence my choice, because in the schools you did have some enlightened teachers, but most of them taught us not to have great expectations, so we wouldn't be looking for jobs outside Leith. Boys would be mainly employed in the docks, the bonds and the cooperage, and girls were expected to work also in the bonds, in Duncan's chocolate factories, in Crawford's biscuits, and if you were above average intelligence, you would work in an office. I fortunately was able to work in an office, but I would never have dreamt of working anywhere except in Leith.
Leith started about 10 years ago through Leith Festival. I like the diversity of Leith FM, because we have a French programme, Spanish, a Polish programme, and a Moroccan programme. And the other thing about it is we have lots of lovely Scottish accents on Leith FM as well. My career for the past 30 years has been in the pub trade. The pub was in Leith, so I was privileged to meet lots and lots and lots of local Leithers and lots and lots and lots of crew from ships that were in the docks in
So I went
Leith.
to Leith Nautical College, and I had a training ship in the docks where Ocean Terminal is now. One thing that I had to do was to be able to swim. Now, I was 16 and I couldn't even swim at that age. And no matter how good you were academically, if you couldn't swim, you were not allowed to qualify. So you should take you along to Victoria Baths in Junction Street, and we'd see all the swimmers who could swim stand at this side, and all the swimmers who can't swim at this side. And we see right non-swimmers going to bend over the swimming pool and adopt a diving position and bend forward. And you'd done that. And the head tutor you should, and you kicked you in. You had to learn the hard way. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. Within 4 weeks, I could swim very, very well indeed. And when I was in the Merchant Navy, I saw many, many places.
I put the advert in the paper, cookers clean as new. And I used to spend 2 or 3 nights a week going out cleaning cookers when I was 14, 15 years of age. So I was always involved in something to do. When I was 23 years of age, I decided that I'd like to. So one day I was driving past a shop up in the town in a place called Batu Street, and I saw the shop lying empty, and I thought to myself, I'll go and make inquiries. And I've got inquiries, and I was very fortunate that some people gave me some support, and I opened up a died at this ground place. And that was me started up in
I
business.
think when I was about 14, I read some books about nurses, and for about maybe a week I wanted to be a nurse, but I soon changed my mind again. Teaching, that was it. So when I left school, went to college for 3 years and became a teacher, and stayed a teacher until I stopped working.
Thank you.
Well, I just always liked drawing and painting and making things, so when I was looking what I was going to do at university, I chose to do art, and so I've just always done it, and I've always enjoyed it. And Leith has influenced my career in that my first drawing project at art college was in Leith, in the docks, in the old docks, and I trained as a restorer in Leith, and first worked in Leith, and my wife, her studio was in Leith, and lots of artist studios have been in Leith, so I've had a long association with Leith, and it's played a big part in my career.
Sorrow.
I think Leith is a great place. It's full of interesting people, interesting characters, interesting buildings, and I think there's always something new to learn about Leith.
Whenever I'm asked, where do you come from? It could be all over the world. It could be in America, it can be in New Zealand or Australia or Russia or somewhere like that. And people say, where do you come from? I never say I come from Edinburgh. I always say I come from Leith. And they look at me and they say, you come from Leith? And I say, yep, I am a Leither. The reason I say that is because we're all proud. We're proud of the identity that we have, and all the things that happen to us being brought up in Leith.
Leith has a very, very strong identity. I remember when I was graduating from Leith Nautical College, the captain of the training ship says to us, lads, you're going to be travelling all over the world, and people are going to ask you, where do you come from? Now you'll probably react and say, oh, out of Edinburgh, because you'll think people don't know where Leith is. But she's never ever say I come from Edinburgh. Always say you come from Leith, no matter which part of the world you're in.
To me, Leith is still very special. I don't recognise a lot of the Leith now, but in my memories of Leith, it was always very special because it was very community minded.
Well, I think that's my hometown. Everybody says Edinburgh, but no. If you're a Leither, that's different. And we're always proud that we're brought up in Leith. Where were you brought up? We never say Edinburgh, we say Leith. Because it's a small place, but there was a great camaraderie there if you were brought up in Leith. And it was something you were proud of. And that's how it should be. So when people say to me, Peter, where did you come from? I say, I come from Leith. Oh, but you're from Edinburgh. I says, aye, but Leith's the capital of Edinburgh.
I think being born in Leith and then coming back to Leith to see my granny and my great aunts, and coming back in for swimming, coming back in to watch the Hibs, influenced me greatly, and I think that Leith influence stays with you. I have an aunt that lives in Australia and the Leith influence is still there.
There is no comparison anywhere to Leith. Leith is the best. And I have been, I have travelled a bit, France and America and Sweden and, forget, but Spain. No, believe me, stay in Leith.
Major events, well, there's the Leith Festival, there's the Mela, they're just building the site for the Mela at the moment, that's always good. But my favourite's the Gala Day, I like the Gala Day. And everybody comes out and comes together and you see all the different people of Leith all enjoying themselves. That's my favourite. And yeah, I feel very at home in Leith, so it's where I've made my home, and so I would say that's the most important thing about Leith for me.
Sorrow.
Leith Festival was originated about 100 years ago, maybe more, and that all the local industries usually had a float stand in the pavement and throw money onto the lorry or the carriage or whatever. And all the money that was collected went to Leith Hospital to pay for medical care for those people who couldn't afford to pay. So that was all before the National Health Service came in.
Certainly, Leith has always provided spaces for people who don't have much money to practice their business or their art, and so I think I would have a different career. It wouldn't be so easy as it has been for not just me, but lots of my friends have had workspaces in Leith and still have workspaces in Leith because they can afford to have it there, and there's lots of old spaces, old warehouses and things that they can use. So it's always provided a home for artists and people like that, so I think it always will.
My heart was broken.
No matter what happens, you just keep on going, and I think that that's what Leith has done throughout the ages. It's just kept on going. It's been under siege by Cromwell. It was threatened by John Paul Jones of the US Navy that it was going to ransack Leith, and Leith said it would defend itself. It's seen many changes, and I think it will persevere through all these changes. The place where my mum and dad were married and where I was christened, St Thomas's Church, is now the Gurdwara for the Sikh community to worship in. So that's changed. I can remember going to the State Cinema on Great Junction Street, which is no longer there. That's changed. And Leith will always change, but and it's to make change for the better is one of the reasons that I stand as a councillor for Leith.
There are some good changes, there are some bad changes. The good changes are that people have a lot better housing than they had in my time.
Oh, it's changed altogether. You know, as you can imagine, since I was a young boy. Some people think that the change is not for the better, but when I think back to what it was like in Leith, whilst Leith was a great place to live in, there was a lot of difficult conditions, and the housing conditions were quite poor, and they weren't very good houses, and a lot of houses didn't even have a bath or water or things like that. Whereas today you don't have that.
Well, I think it's better now. When I first came to Leith, it was going through a period when it didn't have much money in, and it was a difficult time for Leith. And now it's a lot more prosperous and a lot happier. I think there's lots more to do, lots more restaurants and places to go out. They've cleaned up the river. The river used to be full of rubbish and old shopping trolleys and all sorts. And the Leith, they've got the Water Leith walkway all cleaned up, and it's a lovely place to walk now. So I think it's much better now.
I go back to when I was a boy. It's all changed because then we had big Leith docks and there was a lot of ships used to come into Edinburgh. We've lost all that now. I think there's a lot more offices now, whereas when I was a youngster at your ages, there was the mills, the flour mills, all along Leith docks. You know, that was a busy area. I think that was great. I used to go down and watch guys fishing on the end of the pier and things like that. And it was a great place just to go for a Sunday walk.
As regards employment, there is no employment to talk of in Leith as there used to be. Because in Leith, up to the 1950s, you had very busy docks. There's hundreds of ships coming to the docks every day. And we needed hundreds, if not thousands, of dockers, men who loaded and unloaded ships to do this. Then you had other industries like cooperages, people who made barrels. You had the granary, who processed grain. You had people who made wine and whiskey. You had engineering works. There was thousands of people. All the sirens in the works used to go off. You know, wee, wee, screeching noise. And let me know it's time to break for an hour for lunch. And it was like one big football match coming out. And you walk down the Kirgit, which was the big Kirgit, Leith Walk down the shopping centres. And all the people coming out of their works to go home for their lunch. And the same was at tea time at 5 o'clock. Thousands of people walked. all converging on Junction Street, and Leith Walk, and Ferry Road, coming home from
If
work.
I think back to Leith, a lot of the big shops that were in Leith at the time, the Co-op and other places, they are no longer there. And what you have is many, many smaller shops now. But you also had a lot of factories in Leith. The docks, they used to build ships, but they don't build ships now. A place called the Roperie, and just not far from here, just next to the school, there was a place there that used to make ropes and send them all over the world. Well, that's not there now. Conference Biscuit Factory, that's not there now.
What has changed is we demolished the Kirgit and the Toll Booth Wynd. These were the oldest streets in Scotland.
In these days, the Kirgit stretches from the foot of Leith Walk all the way down to where these multi-storey flats are now. But there was houses on either side, there was dozens and dozens of shops on either side. The shopping in Leith was far different in these days. There was no supermarket, but you went out and bought your food daily in these days because nobody had refrigerators.
But we were very lucky in Leith because when I was growing up, we had fantastic shops in Leith. We had anything you wanted, you could get it at Provident. If it was still there, it'd be called Scotland. But then it was called Leith Provident, and you could get everything at Leith Provident. That's gone. So that once that happened, until they built Ocean Terminal, you really did have to go in the bus into Edinburgh if you wanted something from Marks and Spencer's. Ocean Terminal's helped because they've got Debenhams for clothes and things, but the shops have changed a lot.
And entertainment, you had 5 cinemas in Leith at one time. You had the Alhambra on the corner of Springfield Street. You had the Capitol in Gordon Street, which is still there by Bingo Hall. You had the Palace, which is at the foot of Leith Walk on the corner of Duke Street. You had the Laurie Street, which is just behind where Old Woolworths used to be. You had the State Cinema at Junction Bridge, so you had a choice of 5 cinemas. And people who like dancing could go dancing, at least there was plenty of dancing. And behind, or next to the State Cinema, was a big stadium where you could go watch wrestling every Monday or Tuesday night, people wrestling. So we had plenty of choice of entertainment.
Leith in the past was quite industrial. Unfortunately, most of those industries have gone elsewhere. And I think for a time, Leith seemed to be quite run down. But in the, at least 20 odd years or 30 years I've been in Leith, I've seen a huge change. Lots of derelict areas are now wonderfully beautiful flats. We've got super restaurants along the shore. That's all been upgraded, so Leith is thriving.
Well, I don't know whether anyone can say why or what it will be like. There were big plans for Leith, and they seem to have stopped, so no one knows how it's going to grow. It was going to grow massively, but now no one knows. But I think it will continue to improve. It'll continue to become a nicer place to live and to work.
People sometimes say to you, are these changes for the better? Well, I think they are. I think there's better days today than what's ever been, you know.
They could have held on to the Kirgit and it would have been such a tourist boost for Leith. Education in Scotland was first brought about in the grounds of South Leith Church. And so if we had all that, we should have held on to it. Certainly there was lots of rats and mice and everything, but we could have got rid of them. And I don't think that the high-rise flats done anything for us.
My heart was.
I think the people of Leith are wonderful, especially the school children, who seem to be extremely well behaved as far as I can see, and I hope that they will stay in Leith once they're all grown up.
The people of Leith do have a separate identity, and even to this day, people help one another. If you're in need, you've always got neighbours. That sums up the people of Leith.
What's important to me about the Leith that I knew was that it was a community, and it was a community that helped each other. When I would go down to my granny's, she always had soup on the fire, and the old couple next door, before we would sit down to the soup, we would have to take them a bowl of soup and bread, and the community always helped each other. What is special about Leith people is the resilient, and the people in the main were very hard working. You'll always have a core of people for various reasons who are unable to work, but they are in the minority. But in Leith, hard work was what was instilled into you, and pride in your appearance and in your home. And if someone said to me, where was I born? Well, I was born in Admiralty Street. Now everybody knows it's Admiralty Street, but if you're a true Leither, you will say Admiralty Street. And
when I was a wee girl growing up, I felt like I was living in a little village along there at the end of Leith Links, and the people round about were so kind and so caring. Everybody looked after everybody else. If somebody was hurt, they didn't need to run to their own mum. If somebody else's mum was there, they helped you. And people shared things. People were very, very kind to each other, and I think that's something about Leith as a community. It's a very caring community, and I think that's still more or less the same today. People do want to help each other, and people are very, very friendly. And nobody bothered about if someone had more money than anybody else. It didn't matter. You just got on with your life and got on with the people round about you. It was a very, very special place to live.
I love Leith because there seems to be, for me anyway, a community spirit. That means that people communicate with each other.
Do other places?
Well, I think Leith, because it's a port, because it's had a history of people coming and going, it's very mixed. From centuries ago when Leith traded with Scandinavian countries, you've always had people of different countries coming and living here. There used to be a large Danish community in Leith, and now we have people from Eastern Europe, and we have people from India and other places, and so it's a real mix, and it's a very open place as a result, and people are very friendly and used to seeing people who aren't like them and being friendly and open to them. So I think that's one thing that Leith has that other places might not.
The special thing about the people in Leith is just actually their character. They've got what you would call a pocky sense of humour. They're generous in spirit and nature, and I think these are marvellous qualities to have.
You saw it,
Persevere.
you touched it, you saved it.
People.
My tears are crying,
Proud.
my tears
resilient.
Persevere.
I love Leith.